Good evening. Welcome to the February 3rd, 2021 meeting for the City of Murfreesboro Planning Commission. We will call the meeting to order, and again, per the Governor's executive order, we do have one member tonight participating via Zoom. Jennifer Garland will be participating via Zoom. So we will be, again, tonight, all votes will be via roll call. And last meeting, we had Mr. Rick LaLance was via Zoom, and that was his first Planning Commission meeting. So this is his first one here in attendance. So welcome, Mr. LaLance. We're glad to have you. Thanks for being here. So we do have a quorum present then. Everybody's here. And so our first item of business will be to approve the minutes of the January 20th, 2021 Planning Commission meeting. Anybody have any additions or corrections to those minutes?
If none, I'll make a motion we approve the minutes for January 20.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Jacob.
Commissioner Garland.
Aye.
Commissioner Halliburton.
Aye.
Commissioner Russell.
Aye.
Commissioner Salas.
Aye.
Commissioner Wright.
Aye.
Commissioner LaLance.
Aye.
Chair Jones.
Aye. Minutes pass. Our first item on the agenda tonight for public hearings, and actually we have one item tonight on public hearings. It is a zoning application for approximately 1.28 acres located along South Bilbro Avenue and East State Street to be rezoned from RS8 and CCO to PRD, the row on Bilbro PRD, and CCO. Blue Sky Construction, Inc. is the applicant. Ms. Kerr, how are you this evening?
Thank you. I'm doing well. Thank you, Chair Jones and Planning Commission members. Subject property is located along the east side of South Bilbro Avenue and along the north side of East State Street. The requested areas consist of 5 parcels totaling 1.2 acres and is identified as 217 through 225 South Bilbro Avenue. The parcels are currently developed with single-family dwellings and are zoned RS8. The applicant wishes to rezone the properties to PRD. The proposed PRD would consist of 18 townhouse development called the row on Bilbro. The proposed gross density would be 14 dwelling units per acre, and the subject property is also located in the CCO overlay district, and the proposed zoning would not affect that CCO zoning. The surrounding property is primarily RS8. The primary surrounding land uses are single-family dwellings. The proposed development would include a Type B buffer, landscaping with a 6-foot vinyl privacy fence along both the north and east property lines adjacent to the residential uses. Yes. The development would have direct access onto East State Street as well as South Bilbro Avenue. Proposed development would include 3 two-story building townhome units. Each of the 11 units facing Bilbro and the 8 units facing Bilbro and the 3 units facing East State Street would be 3-bedroom units having rear entry 2-car garages and rooftop patios. The 7 units in the rear of the development will have 2 bedrooms each, a rear patio with a storage room, and surface parking area. The garage parking for the development is required to meet the minimum requirements. The development includes 5 additional surface parking spaces for guests. The number of spaces was increased from the previous meeting of the discussion that we had at the last Planning Commission meeting. The primary exterior materials, get the are painted brick. Metal awnings at the entrances and cementous siding for the rooftop patios on the 3-bedroom units. Minimum building setbacks for the development would be 8 feet on the fronts along both South Bilbro Avenue and East State Streets, and 10 feet on the north and east sides abutting the single-family residential zoning. The open space and formal open space calculations have been updated since the last Planning Commission meeting. We'll go to the open space plan. The pattern book states that the development will include approximately 27% of the total lot as open space. The site is required to contain 5% formal open space, and the applicant is proposing approximately 8% formal open space, and that is shown with the outline of the red for the formal open space. The formal open space internal to the site consists of a courtyard with a seating area with stamped concrete patio, an arbor with fire pit, and enhanced landscaping areas within the open grass island areas. The future land use map recommends the subject property be developed as suburban residential land use. This classification tends to serve as a transition from urban to rural residential development and is primarily located along the peripheral of the city. The comprehensive plan calls out RS 15, RS 12, and RS 10 as the existing zoning districts that are compatible with this designation. 2.0 to 3.54 dwelling units per acre is recommended density.
Sorry, could I ask you a question? I can't see the red line, I guess because I'm colorblind, but
It goes around the edge of the sidewalks, out in the parking island, and back around.
all right. So, I mean, it goes right up along like the front, looks like kind of the front porch of each house. That's part of the red line? That's
Yes,
open
sir.
space? Okay.
Yes, sir. That would be the formal open space. The open space is all of the green within the area. While single-family residential uses are consistent with the residential land use character in certain circumstances, the more intense single-family residential attached use that is proposed at 14 dwelling units per acre is not consistent with the vision for the suburban residential land use character. The Planning Commission will need to determine whether this is an appropriate instance to deviate from the recommendations of the future land use map. Staff is supportive of this rezone request, including the deviation from the future land use map, because the proposed residential land use will be compatible with the surrounding residential land uses. Compact, dense development is desirable and is in and around downtown and promotes walkability. The proposed development will contribute to the vitality and quality of life of downtown, continuing the positive trend towards reinvestment in the area. While staff is generally supportive of the application and the land use, several opportunities to improve the application have been identified, including the following: adding the landscape island back into the row of parking spaces in front of the fire pit, which will help both break up the row of parking in the parking spaces and to add additional barrier for the safety purposes between the seating area and the parking lot. Increasing the amount of step up at the front of the units in order to increase the amount of privacy for the future residents, and using stamped concrete for all sidewalks in the proposed formal open space area in order to formalize this area and differentiate it from the rest of the site. The following exceptions to the Standard Rsa Type 3 zoning regulations that have been proposed are the front setbacks along, let me go back to the site plan so you can see this. Front setbacks to be 8 foot along South Bilbro Avenue as opposed to the 20-foot setback based on the average of the front setbacks on the same side of the block. That is a CCO recommendation of how you situate the houses on the same lot. Front setback to 8 foot along East State Street as opposed to the required 16-foot setback. The rear setback to be a minimum of 10 foot along the eastern lot line as opposed to the 20 foot that is required. A reduction in the required 18-inch step up at the front elevations to a 6-inch step up. The RSA Townhome Type 3 are required to have a minimum finished floor elevation of 18 inches above grade when the front setback is less than 30 feet. An exception to allow the use of a solid waste cart valet garbage service in lieu of the required dumpster. Staff has discussed this and believes the opportunity to use a dumpster instead of cart valet service could be more appropriate. An exception to allow a Type D buffer, 10 foot, with a privacy fence in lieu of a Type D buffer, which is 15 foot along the property lines adjacent to the single-family residences, and to allow 13 parking spaces in a row without a landscape island as opposed to the standard maximum of 12. The applicant and his representative are available to present the development and answer questions regarding the proposed development. In rezoning, the Planning Commission needs to conduct a public hearing and then formulate a recommendation to City Council.
Mr. Roundtree does have a presentation.
Okay. Mr. Roundtree?
Thank you, Matthew. Chairwoman Jones, Commissioners, my name is Clyde Roundtree with Huddleston Steel Engineering. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to present to you the row on Bilbro. I'd like to thank Amelia for all her hard work and working through this pattern book with us. And she's becoming an expert in the CCO area, and I appreciate all her knowledge and growing knowledge of this area. She's been a great asset. I'm here tonight with Brian Burns, who is the developer of Blue Sky Construction. He'll be available for any questions after the presentation if you'd like to speak to him. And I'm just excited that Mr. Burns is investing in downtown. This is his, how many, Brian? I mean, it's kind of started with cottages, I guess, but this is, he's got East 5 Villas going on, and that's really laying in there nicely. And this is a great opportunity, and I think we got the right man to pull this project off downtown. So thanks, Brian, for allowing us to be a part of this, and we're excited to see it come forward. As far as the row on Bilbro, which even the name I think is solid, it was a unique opportunity in the fact that there were 5 contiguous pieces of property together. These were previously owned as rental properties by a SEM owner, so Mr. Burns was able to get them at auction and immediately saw the opportunity, to create an impact by having the 5 adjacent lots. A lot of the lots, I think I mentioned this before, the depth of the lots downtown are really allowing the development community to have some neat opportunities that wouldn't be provided if the lots were shallower. So there I want to just mention that it's another great opportunity to take dilapidated property and actually bring something new. Overall, the infrastructure is in place. We are taking advantage of the CCO in terms of its sewer allocation, the fact that we are allowed to not have to be restrained by that sewer allocation, so that's a great opportunity for downtown development. The character of the site right now, it's an older neighborhood. A lot of the homes are smaller in nature. This is basically the streetscape kind of character. So a lot of mature trees, and Mr. Burns and I spoke this week about trying to preserve as many of those as possible along the peripherals of the property. Internally, we know a lot of those trees will be removed, but if there's trees we can save, we're definitely going to try to. As far as the homes that Mr. Burns is going to be taking down, they've been in a rental pool for a while. I'm not sure exactly how many years, but I'm sure it's well over 15 to 20 years. And so as a result of them being rental properties, they're in a pretty bad state. They've gotten a lot worse because the owner passed away, so therefore they're not being cared for at all right now. They've all been vacated, and Mr. Burns is in the process of trying to secure a demolition permit as we speak. Overall, the site plan, some things we're excited about that are important from an overall standpoint is as we move into infill projects downtown, they're going to take on a little bit more of an urban character. And I think I mentioned part of the geometry that's going to be dictated by the urban character is going to be more rectilinear. Some of that's based on the depth of the lots, but a lot of the folks are trying to get a rooftop experience for We learned that's not our formal open space, but just for an open space opportunity for people to own those homes. So therefore, the roofs primarily will want to be flat, so there's some outdoor living that can happen on the rooftop. So they're taking on a little bit more of a geometric kind of symmetry. Also, it's kind of a contemporary look, which Mr. Burns likes, so that helps. It kind of works in both directions in a positive way. We are asking for 18 homes to be constructed. As Amelia mentioned, there's 11 three-bedroom homes, and they're facing South Billboro as well as East State Street. It's important to know that we're asking for a reduction in the front setback, but what we're trying to create is more of an urban scale. So when you drive down the street, it feels more urban, and it has more of a row house type of character. But in doing that, we allow the parking to be screened, which I think is also something pretty consistent with urban characters, that parking, you don't see cars. The majority of the cars will be behind the building. There is on-street parking capabilities along South Billboro, but we're really trying to screen the parking, which I think is a real nice component of the design. There are 7 two-bedroom units, and I think that's important to acknowledge. They're in the back portion, and the reason that's important is that there's a diversity of product that's going to be offered, 2 different types of homes. There's a different person that's going to buy a 3-bedroom home with a rooftop patio area versus a 2-bedroom home, and I think Mr. Burns is committed to trying the best of our ability to have the opportunity to have a varying price points on the property. So it can really appeal to a broader base of buyers, but I think it can fill a lot of needs downtown. For the empty nester, for the young couple, first-time home buyer, for some of the people that live there now looking for something newer. So I think we're offering a diverse product that can really help the downtown population have a place to live. As Amelia mentioned, there are 2-car garages on the rear of all the buildings facing the right-of-ways, and then all the buildings in the back will be serviced by surface parking. One of the things we talked about at a Planning Commission workshop was expanding the amount of guest parking spaces, and we were able to do that. It was a little bit of reduction in green space, but we had some green space we could give up. And so we added some parking, and one of those parking areas is basically to the southern portion of the 2-bedroom units. And we feel like we've met the need that was requested by the Planning Commission. There is a question whether, it's one of what Amelia mentioned, is a possibility of adding back that parking island. That would just be a matter of how the commissioner's will is, because we were asked to pull that out in order to maximize the parking potential for the site. As far as the formal open space, this is becoming a requirement for all developments in Murfreesboro. It's going to be important for this particular development, but one thing I've noticed, I'm working on another project right now with Mr. Burns as well, and we're trying to bring the formal spaces into the property, and that's primarily to make sure that the residents can maximize the usability of it, make sure there is a safe factor as far as the lighting and all the things around that formal open space, so it really is an active space versus being something more token in nature. Mr. Burns is going to have a fire pit area surrounded by kind of an arbor structure with some swings, and that's really a focal point gathering area that'll be hopefully for the whole development, but we know the folks using the two-bedroom units, that'll probably be their primary space. One thing we are trying to do is enhance that space as much as possible. The staff has asked for us to have more of a stamped concrete sidewalk around that formal open space, and we understand the intention of that. My only concern, and I've responded back, was that the cobble feel that stamped concrete kind of gives you kind of precludes some of the uses. If kids want to rollerblade or skateboard or anything like that, it makes it hard, and this may be a place where families live, moms with strollers, what have you. So that'd be our only concession about whether we do that or not, is make sure we're maximize the functionality of the formal open space. As far as the architectural character, Mr. Burns has been wanting to do these for a while. These are more of your row house style, brownstone type of look. They're more contemporary in nature. It is a painted brick, 2 tones of painted brick, the primary base color as well as the accent color along the soffit of the homes. There'll be some brick detailing to kind of break up the mass of the brick. The windows are larger, the door is contemporary style. It will have some sort of metal awning associated with it. And really, all in all, it creates more of a contemporary look. Even the garage doors on the back will have much more of a contemporary flavor. And that's, again, kind of introducing this new urbanism kind of feel in a downtown area. The 2 bedrooms, in addition to having the formal open space out front, will also have small patios in the rear with small storage units associated with them. It's more, basically a storage closet. But if you can see how they're partitioned out, that will create a little sense of privacy on the back of the properties as well. So for a 2-bedroom unit to have a formal open space in the front yard and a nice patio area in the backyard, we feel like we're accomplishing a lot to serve those folks in the 2-bedroom townhomes. As was mentioned, as far as the conceptual landscape plan, we're going to put an emphasis on foundation planting along both the public right-of-ways as well as streetscape to kind of create that real nice, lush feeling along both South Bilbro and East State Street. Mr. Burns has asked, we are showing a solid privacy fence along the property line. We might want to build some flexibility. We know we want to fence the property, but he has a little reservation about whether we're committing to a solid fence versus, a metal fence, but we are wanting to secure the property for sure. There will be a tight buffer if we're approved. That'll be along that back property line, and that's really just to create that separation with the existing homes that are on the peripheral of the property. We're suggesting in the formal open space that it takes on more of a garden character, and that's something I think is real important. It's not just a lump of grass with nothing in it. We really want to create more of a garden effect. And how those will be utilized, we don't know yet, but we're doing more than just, putting lawn out in front. But one thing to mention as far as if we add that additional parking island with a tree in it, we will have some trees that are kind of separating the homes from the parking. So if we'd accomplish that without adding that parking island, that's great. Using the vegetation, I'll be inside the formal open space area. If you'd like us to add the island, that's not a problem as well. And lastly, there's a picture. The image is basically an architectural or renderer's image of how that open space will look. You can see the landscaping being suggested on both sides of the fire pit area. And then these are unique in the fact that the rooftop, which we're seeing coming downtown, we had to put a little bit of a program together so it could have a dining area outside, some lounging areas, as well as a gathering area. So all in all, we're very excited about how this could be utilized and bringing vitality to downtown. And we are grateful for the opportunity to present it to you. And I think Mr. Burns has got a clear vision of where the CCO is directing the downtown development. And we hope to make the Royal and Bilbro a valuable addition to downtown. So with that in mind, if you have any questions for myself or Mr. Burns, we're here for you. And thank you for giving us a chance to present to you the Royal and Bilbro.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Roundtree. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Roundtree? Matthew, you got something?
I did want to just make a clarification.
Okay.
Mr. Roundtree mentioned the fence that's a part of the buffer. The pattern book specifically states privacy fence.
So solid.
So yeah, to do anything different than that would be different than what they're proposing in their pattern book.
Well noted. Thank you.
What was the question that you had about it? Well, you mentioned that there was some question about whether or not there was supposed to be a privacy fence. Why?
Oh, no, it's the type of fence.
We're going to fence it. It's not anything to save money. It's when I got there with the demo people and the tree people, when you get a lot of big trees, I think the privacy fences may not work as good, and we already had the pattern work done. So I'd ask if we could maybe do it either or, whether it be a privacy fence or a wrought iron aluminum type fence. It's just hard to tell which one really looks better there now, because we want to save as much of the original trees as we can.
Yeah, I mean, I've got some concerns about the rear setback anyway, so I guess that the fence would, kind of play a part in whether or not I think that setback's enough or not enough or whatever. I'm just curious what the question was, so.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for these gentlemen before we open the public hearing?
Hi, I have a question.
We'll open the public hearing in just a minute, okay? Thank you.
So sorry. Okay, thanks.
You're fine. You're fine.
Is that not Jennifer?
Was that Jennifer?
Is that Jennifer? Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. We will go ahead then and open the public hearing. And if I have a couple of people that have registered to speak, and so I'll call those out here in just a minute. And just a brief reminder for anybody speaking via Zoom or anybody here in the audience, if you come forward to speak at the public hearings tonight, please state your name and your address, and keep your comments limited to 3 minutes or less. And please make all of your comments directly to the Planning Commission. Thank you. So we'll open the public hearing. We have Ms. Tara, I'm going to say Siester at 224 South Bilbro Avenue that has registered to speak. And so if you are listening, Ms. Siester, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Sorry about that. I haven't attended a meeting before, so.
That's perfectly fine. Not a
Thank you.
problem.
So I live in the Blue House across the street from the development, and I think it's going to be a really beautiful addition. I think it'll be nice. A couple questions I have. First of all, is it going to be a gated community, or is it going to be open to whoever?
Okay, and I'm sorry I did not mention if for anybody speaking tonight, if you'll, you can ask all of your questions, make any of your comments, and we will make note of all of those. And at the end of the public hearing, we will do our best to answer all of the questions.
Okay.
So we'll make a note about the question regarding gated. What else did you have,
yes.
Ms. Seister?
That's just about it. I am obviously a little concerned. I know that the timeline probably takes a very long time, but there are people going in and out of the houses in the evenings. There's squatters. It's a really big mess. And I know that that's probably just largely due to the condition they were in, but there's siding all over the street. It's just kind of getting pretty unsightly. I didn't know what the timeline would be, that kind of being cleaned up. So those are my two main questions. Just
All right. We will get those addressed, and we appreciate very much you taking the time to be in on the meeting tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So our next person that had registered to speak was Mr. Anthony Brothers, and I believe you go by Paul at 220 First Avenue. And Mr. Brothers, if you are there, please speak up.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair and Commission members. To introduce myself, my name is Paul Brothers, a resident and homeowner on the corner of First Avenue and State Street. My property is adjacent to the proposed PRD rezoning that is being discussed. I have several concerns with the proposed rezoning and property area. I have observed several of these attached dwelling type housing units in our city, and with our current historical neighborhood of single-story homes originally built in the early 1900s, I do not feel that to mix such contrasting housing units would be conducive to the neighborhood. In recent years, we have seen more families come into the area of young children. With this addition to our older population, we are at capacity for our area. The additional population that comes with 18 housing units will jeopardize the safety and security of our homes and our residents. The additional population will also enhance the noise within the neighborhood itself. There's also an issue with cars using State Street as like a makeshift drag strip. I've seen vehicles failing to obey posted stop signs on a daily basis. And I'm just concerned that with the traffic and the amount of vehicles that will be added to these 18 units will just result in an issue that or a situation that is not healthy, or safe, or reasonable. We've also taken steps to reduce the crime rate in our neighborhood over the past few years. Increasing the population will detour the progress made and handicap further growth. Further studies should be conducted to see how these crime rates are associated with attached housing units. And I'm also concerned about how these proposed units will affect home values in the neighborhood. As some of our residents get older, they may be interested in selling their homes or in renovations of their homes. If the property values are somehow negatively affected, this may affect their ability to sell or secure a loan to renovate their property. In closing, I do understand the need to do something with the proposed property and houses currently occupying the area, the proposed property area. Several are in desperate need of repairs. I would not object to the owners either refurbishing the current homes or building new single-unit homes or duplexes on the property. There are several nearby empty commercial lots that could be easily rezoned for this project and would be a lot more conducive to this proposal. And I thank you for your time allowing me to speak this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Brothers. We appreciate you taking your time to join us tonight. Okay, that was everybody we had that had registered. Do we have anybody else here in the audience tonight that would like to speak either for or against this item? Okay, Then we will close the public hearing, and we will do our best to answer any questions and then have other comments and questions from the Planning Commission. So, Mr. Burns, you want to address some of the questions we heard?
The first lady had called, we are in the process of getting demolition permits on the houses now. Regardless if it passes or doesn't pass, the houses are going to go. So I felt comfortable taking them down. There was really no way to save them.
Timeline on that would be like
I'm working on getting the permits
few months
today.
or-
No, I'm hoping to have 3 of the houses gone by next week.
Okay.
2 of the houses have asbestos. Shingles, not a big deal, but I have to get an asbestos contractor to take those shingles off. So
Okay.
I would say, weather permitting, they won't be at any of the trees that we can't save, and all the houses will be gone probably in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. As far as cleaning up the lots, we try to keep them cleaned up. Just seems like something blows off the house every windstorm, so it's just hard to secure the. I don't know how they're standing. So
And her other question was, was it gated? And it is not a
no,
gated.
it is not a gated. We did not feel it was a good spot to gate it.
All right, and any response to any of Mr. Brothers' questions, comments regarding
I'm trying to figure out how to respond to
density
that.
and not a good fit for the neighborhood, and
It is different than what's there. I agree.
definitely.
But I think I think everybody wants downtown to revitalize and look nice, and I think when you put projects, whether I do them or somebody else does them, it does that, and I think it will help other people who maybe have houses there that can't be. Not every house needs to be torn down. Some can be saved. These can't, and I'm hoping when it does, it makes other people want to sell their houses, and maybe the duplexes, maybe the houses. I don't know that that's the only thing you can build downtown, but it just seems like this was a perfect spot to do it. That's a pretty rough section, and I think it'll just help. I think it'll help everybody. I think it does nothing but help home values for people behind me and beside me.
Okay.
That was you're right, the last comment you made was one of his questions. So just to clarify, what do you think of price points on these 2 and 3 bedroom units are? Just to give him an idea.
The price point of the 2 bedrooms, I hope to sell for like $249 in that range.
Okay.
Which gives somebody the ability to have an affordable home in a nice complex. The 3 bedroom with the rooftops, those are a little unique. That is my same exact unit I'm building on Vine Street. It's 2 stories with a rooftop instead of being 3 stories like most rooftops. So it doesn't stand up tall like a lot of the ones do, but those will sell in the $319 range, $320 range. It's hard to tell with the way building supplies are.
Sure.
While you're up here, could and I'm maybe hopeful that Mr. Brothers I'm hopeful he's still listening. One of the questions that I was going to ask was probably fairly important to him. I was on the layout, and I apologize, I wasn't able to see the layout in the last time from the phone call that I was on, but it looks like there is a rooftop on that far east unit that fronts State Street. Is that correct?
The everything at fronts State Street and everything at fronts Billbro's rooftop. The one in the very back is not rooftop, but we made it look like the other ones. It has the flat roof that drains to the rear. We didn't want to put regular roofs on that and it stick out.
I guess the first thing that stuck out to me was having a rooftop on a shorter setback with a questionable buffer as far as whether or not any of these trees are going to stay there or not. Whether or not we'd want to put a rooftop looking straight over into this guy's backyard. I mean, I wouldn't like it, whether it's second floor or third floor, frankly. I mean, that doesn't seem like that would be, I don't know, I'm just kind of thinking out loud. I really don't know exactly how that's going to look conceptualizing it, but it seems like that's going to be somebody looking straight into my backyard from a pretty close distance, 8 feet.
It's going to have a wall that has a wall that's a 6-foot wall. It's not like you're just going to be looking right over. The areas it's made that's going to be more open to look down into is going to be into the complex, not. That's the end unit you're talking about. So it'll be like, it's like the ones in the center. There'll be 6-foot parapet walls where you're not going to be just looking straight down into somebody's yard.
Okay. Yeah, that's better. That's helpful, yeah.
And to be honest, this is the first time I've built this project here, so there's a little bit of a learning curve for me on things like that. That's things I didn't think of. It. Some of my downtown Nashville builders have brought up to me, and they're very experienced in this, so I've been sort of picking their brains on this project.
And that was one of my questions, was about the height of the walls on the rooftop. So you say it's 6
foot.
feet?
And then the backside will have a railing. That way it is open.
Yeah.
You don't want to have a rooftop and then just be surrounded by walls. So
You're looking at the
that gives
sky.
you, otherwise it sort of kills the. And these rooftops are going to be nice. I know you can't count it as formal space, but I'm putting like the really nice green turf on them. I'm fixing them where they've got places to hook up fireplaces up there, places to hook up grills. My friends that live in Nashville that have rooftop homes, they spend all their time on a rooftop. That is their formal open space.
Certainly.
So.
Yeah, I think it's a true amenity for the actual homeowner. I just didn't think we could count it as formal open space for the
No, I know.
project, but I agree that it's I think a nice amenity for the homeowners.
And the problem I've always had is I think rooftop homes are usually too tall, and I was glad we were able to design this with just being 2 stories.
Do you anticipate being able to keep any of the trees at all, really the big mature trees? I mean, it
I've
doesn't
got
look like
3 of them marked that I'm not taking out on the very front because they're extremely straight poplars. And that's one of the reasons we don't want to do the taller foundations. Then you extend your steps out further. That's why we asked for an exception on that, because there are some trees that's really borderline that we can keep, maybe. And my goal is to keep every tree I can keep on the site. I'm very much I won't say a tree hugger, but I'm close.
That's what everybody says about you.
Yeah, that's especially in Casey Lane, I know.
Would it be, if there are those certain ones that you aren't, you're really trying not to raise or go up to that 18 inches because of some trees here and there, would it be a possibility to maybe 1 or 2 units, you raise it and then you have it down at the level on one, or is that more?
That's a pretty flat site. I don't think that would, and I kind of want to keep the top looking pretty consistent across there. Now I don't mean to say, these aren't going to be just right on the ground. They're going to be raised some. But 8-10 inches from the grade, they'll be at least 8-10 inches off the sidewalk from the street. But when you say 8 inches off the grade, your grade, slopes away from the house, and that's just a harder number to get because you end up with more steps going out the front door. So that is our reasoning.
That was just one of those things that just crossed my mind. Are you required to have a handicap space in here? I don't know what the requirements are for when you have to have one versus
That's
not.
one of these two.
Yeah.
It's my understanding for a for sale product that not required.
Okay. I just want to
Unless
make
there,
sure we weren't missing that in all of our parking
I think
discussions.
unless there is an accessible unit in there, which I don't believe they're required to have. I'm not certain. That's a little bit out of my area of expertise.
I personally feel this will be the nicest of the products I build downtown. I don't think I've done anything that's going to look this good, in my personal opinion. But I might be biased.
You might be. And I appreciate you getting the extra parking in there, but I do think staff has been pretty clear that they really would like to see the landscape island back in front of the fire pit area, the formal space. And so I do think that's something that, I certainly willing to give up that one extra parking space that I fought for because I think they feel like that's much more important to have that broken up, not have 13 in a row and put that one island back in there. So
I'm indifferent about it personally.
is that,
I'm indifferent about it. I could go either way on that one.
And then I think we haven't really talked about the dumpster versus the trash can. I feel like that was something we needed some further discussion on.
I am trying in my projects to do away with dumpsters. We've designed Hidden Rivers, which is 600 townhomes, with no dumpsters anywhere on the site. I just think the poly carts are just look better. You don't have a dumpster that's getting emptied once a week, then everybody's coming over trying to throw stuff over the fence into the dumpster. It's just, I just don't think the dumpster's a good way to go over there.
And how do you see then, and this may be a question for some of the staff, I'm not sure, so would it be the city coming by to pick up the carts, or you're doing that privately?
It'd be a private company that does it, ma'am.
So they would come in with a truck that would be able to come into the space, pick up the trash cans at each driveway?
Most people will put them in their driveway spots. They'll come by just like your house, the city that comes by your house and empties them. There's about 5 or 6 companies that do that. Before I brought this project, I had talked to the property managers in town, and they all said there's several projects that's done on.
Okay. And there's room for the trash can to be in the garage and still get a car?
In the garage and in the storage shed on the 2 bedrooms in the back. Yeah.
Ms. Jones, as far as one thing working with the planning staff that they want us to make sure is that we had an allocation if that system didn't work successfully. And so we have earmarked an area where those poly carts could be stored on a garbage day with a sidewalk that would connect it. It's shown on the site plan. It's that little white, it's kind of hard to see it, but it's there. But we also have dashed in there a place for a dumpster as well, because we wanted to make sure, because I think everyone's concerned if that system fails, what's our option? And so it's been allocated space-wise on the plan. And the pattern book, it says, if necessary, but we wanted to make sure that you knew that there was space allocated for it as an alternative if it's deemed necessary. Do you see that, Ms. Jones, on the plan?
Yes, I see where it is. I understand. I guess it's just, is that something that then the city would be able to, if you deem it's not really working the way it's working, that then you would ask for it? I mean, do you have the ability, based on the way this plan is set up, to ever come in and say, we don't want to use the carts anymore, we want to put a dumpster in? I mean, I take it that's what you're...
Yes, ma'am. We have gone back and forth about the dumpster. Most developments do require a dumpster, especially when they have more than 15 units. They're supposed to have a dumpster. The idea of the valet service is a really good idea. If the back patios on the 7 units on the back is quite small, they're going to take up a large area of that, putting a garbage cart on their back patio. And if it turns out that the valet doesn't work, or are they going to leave them there? Where are they going to store them? And then if they decide, well, we'll put them on the dumpster pad, on the cart pad, I don't believe the cart pad is large enough to be able to hold 18 garbage cans out by the road or where they have them marked on the site plan. Preferably, staff would like for them to go ahead and put the dumpster in to have a fail-safe in case something down the road were to happen with the valet service.
Or at least a dumpster enclosure that, one solution would be for them to construct a actual enclosure where the carts could be located in the event that the homeowners association 5 or 10 years from now needs to come up with a different solution for trash management. There would be an enclosure already there that would meet our requirements, which could, for the time being, double as the enclosure for the carts themselves.
I'd like to comment on that if I could real quick. The reason I just think that the dumpster is a bad idea is is people drive by and go, oh, there's a dumpster. And they just pull in and they start just chunking garbage over the dumpster. And it's always a messy, nasty sight that stinks. The valet service works. That's why these property managers in Nashville and even here locally, and even the one we're going to do at Hidden Rivers, that's the way the product that it works. If just like a dumpster works, if you make it work. I mean, nothing works if the people living there don't want it to work, I guess. That we put the site on there, but as soon as having an enclosure there, that just gives people the opportunity to want to come over and chunk their garbage over there. And I want to keep this site as garden and pristine like as I can. So that is my reasoning for not doing the dumpster.
I would tend to agree with that. I would tend to agree with what he said about people just chunking stuff into dumpsters.
We have recycle bins at General's Landing, and we don't have a dumpster in there area. We've already got like 4 bags of just garbage somebody just decided to chunk in there, and we don't even have a dumpster in it yet, so it just is too easy.
How do you think the density will affect the neighborhood? Yeah, for you.
I don't think the density is going to affect the neighborhood. A lot of I mean, it's 18 homes, and my philosophy in developing has always been is you want to maximize your property as much as you can, so you're not, if you're a growing city, so you're not having to go out to the edges and take more farms over. So I've always thought you try to maximize property to its full potential. That's just always been my philosophy.
I'll go on comment about the density part of it. We talked about this a couple weeks ago a little bit, and just kind of the thing that stands out to me is, I mean, I really don't mind that front setback at all. I mean, I think that does a good streetscape, and it doesn't really concern me at all. The idea of, kind of setting a precedent in the area, and particularly now that I drove over there, where I've seen people that are within a block of this that have rehabbed houses and, put a lot of their own money into making their single-family homes on what is all around this, RS8, RS10 type lots. They put their own good money in there with probably a pretty reasonable assumption that it's not going to be 14 or 15 units per acre 8 feet from their boundary. That concerns me. I think we're supposed to be doing that from a planning perspective. I think the project looks pretty doggone awesome. If there was, if we weren't having to have all these variances with cramming stuff in so tight and having to worry about, well, are we even going to be able to fit a dumpster in there if we need to because we've crammed so many units in there? That probably kind of tells me it's a little bit of a square peg in a round hole, or whatever you say with that. That maybe we're just trying to get 3, 4, 5 too many units in there than it really should be. I know that's not as good for you. You mentioned it the other day, right, on the call. I mean, it's obvious. This is obvious, right? It's not as good for you. It's best for you the more units you can get. But to try to stay consistent with, this is a place where I think is okay for some density. Our maximum density number for apartments right now, as far as the sewer allocation goes, which I know downtown is supposed to be a little bit better about that, is 9 units per acre. If you got this down to, if we get this thing down to 14 units, we're still going to be north of that. But maybe there is a little bit of walkability. I would, I don't know if people from there would walk to the square or not. Maybe so, to shop or to eat or something, perhaps. So do we get the benefit of walkability at this particular spot? I think it's maybe so, maybe not, but I would give some credit for that as it relates to why we would be a little bit more dense than normal. But I just don't know with all those factors whether or not I could feel comfortable going with 18 on this spot right here. That's just my feelings on it. So.
When developing down, and I feel I probably do as much as anybody downtown. There's a lot of Blake Smith and Anna Rowland. There's a lot of people doing some really beautiful stuff downtown. The problem I come up with though is is real estate's expensive. And I know that when you guys look at it, you can't look at it, you're not looking at it and say, well, I'm trying to make him as much money as possible. That's not what you guys do, and I know that. But when a big auction comes up like this, I'm competing against people who don't want to redo this and make it nice. They want to throw some vinyl siding on it and paint it and throw people in there and rent it again. And it turns into another generation of subpar housing there. These houses were such poor shape, no human should be allowed to live in those houses. So the only thing that can really help me to compete against them and buy it from them where they don't get it is density. If I don't get that, I can't. Some of these projects I do these aren't huge. I get made fun of. It's more my hobby than it is a business downtown building part. Thank God I got General's Landing to support my habit, because it's not that great sometimes. And if I don't get the density, it doesn't make other builders want to come and do it. I don't know that everybody else has a hobby like mine that wants to build downtown. So
Well, and the flip side of that is, do we want to set the tone as the planning commission and then the council that 15 units per acre is what you should expect if you decide you want to come downtown? I mean, I would argue a little bit, just that from what I saw driving around there, that you may have been competing with some of those people who might have just tried to slap some siding up, but you were probably competing with some people who thought, man, that'd be a good place, I'll knock that down and build my house there.
I was on that online auction for an hour and a half, and I can assure you the guys competing with did not want to do this. So
There may have been, but looking around, literally within the block of where you are, that has clearly happened. I mean, that it's not those people who have, there was one house that looked brand new, I mean, I assume I think it was a new house. So it does happen, it can happen. That's not what I'm asking you to do. I'm just kind of saying, it's not like this is the only way this can be. And if again, kind of setting this precedent is what a little bit of concern me. You say, hey, this will promote other builders to come. Well, yeah, exactly. And we're going to be at 14, 16 units per acre every time they come. And until we run out of infrastructure.
and this is, I guess, is why your guys have the hard job here. I look at it like this, I think when I look at some of those areas down there, we want it.
It looks great.
We need it to come, whether it's me or Anna or I know Sean's got family that builds downtown. I mean, no matter who it is, it needs to come. And the other side of East Main, is like down Church Street and Lytle Street. I lived in the old fraternity house on Lytle forever. It was a dump. The whole street was rough. That street's beautiful now. You go down Church and Lytle, those streets have turned into expensive, nice, beautiful homes. And I think this side of the East Main needs to do the same thing. And it's just going to take a few projects like this to jumpstart it. It doesn't mean every time I buy a lot, I don't try to get I've got stuff going on Richardson and other streets. I'm just building one house on.
Is there an HOA for this thing?
Yes, sir.
And is there any rental limitation built into it?
Most of the things I do up in there are no short-term rentals, no Airbnb type stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
it's hard to enforce that.
I know. You know what I'm getting at here is the fact that somebody's going to come. You got the capability. We're seeing it happen, and it's no secret. It is what it is. People are buying up entire. They could buy that entire stretch, that back piece or whatever of the 2 bedrooms, and it's all rentals all of a sudden.
I don't see that much on nicer townhomes.
Maybe not, but it's
In
sure
General's Landing,
happening.
I've got one person that rents over. There's one rental in the whole General's Landing, and on Clark Boulevard there was only one. And so, 20 years now, I can't tell you, but when I sell them myself, I don't see many rentals in nicer townhomes.
Hard to make the numbers make sense.
Yeah, the numbers.
They do not. And then if you're in an expensive townhome, there's no way to make it make sense.
Unless you're willing to sell them for a little cheaper, 9 at a time.
That doesn't happen much either.
I'll throw my 2 cents in on this. There's certain, I I get the whole density issue, but the way I'm looking at this project is, and you said that you drove by here, Rick, and I did too. It was been several months ago when I went by there. I look at this project as something that's going to benefit the city of Murfreesboro because of what, compared to what's there today and has been for years, this is a positive improvement. I get that it's setting a precedent in reference to density, but at the same time, I think that these are the types of projects that we want downtown, that there's not a lot of land that's usable property to be redeveloped unless you're gonna have to tear down some houses or some structures that are there today in order for projects like this to come. I think one of the reasons why we talked about not having sewer capacity issues with respects to downtown is that we did want to promote the whole aspect of having density downtown. So I think that, Mr. Burns has tried to work with staff, and there's still some issues that we probably need to discuss and work through as to either making sure that staff feels comfortable with it, but I really don't have a problem with the density piece because I think it is a project that we want here, and I think if we have others come that are similar in nature, I think it's going to benefit downtown Murfreesboro. It's just my opinion.
I want to chip in too. For about 10 or 12 years, I've been waiting for somebody to go in here and redevelop that side of East Main Street, because you drive, this side is all nice and well, just like you just talked about, but when you drive on this side, it's all run down, and I know of several properties just around this area that are really run down. I think it is a positive impact on the community, and instead of coming outside in, you're kind of going inside and going back out, and so instead of the gentrification moving in, you're kind of going right in the middle and instead of coming out. So I do think it's worth the extra density in this area to go for it. I think it's a good thing for Murfreesboro.
I'll just comment, at least from my point of view. I do, when I look at the area, there is a definite need for some improvement. I think diversity of product type is a positive thing for this particular area. I think it will bring in what the improvements that we need in the areas. From my point of view, I like the project. The dumpster issue, I will speak to it just a little bit because I have experience with it. He is actually correct from the standpoint of people dumping. Most of the time in the city, because of the way we've decided to handle refuge when it relates to TVs and all that stuff, people just find a dumpster to dump to. And if you put and I know why we want it from a city standpoint, but if you put a dumpster enclosure there, it will get dumped on. So what I would say is we need to decide. Either we're going to go with the standard city protocol, or we're going to go with the trash cans. But we need to decide, because if you go with the standard city protocol, at least you have the city coming through every so often that's going to take care of it. If you go with something else, then, I mean, people are just going to dump there. If you have an enclosure there and it's not being used, it will get dumped on. And that's something you want to avoid.
Just as a point of clarification, if there was a dumpster, whether it's a dumpster or carts, it would be a private hauler.
Okay.
Would the polycar to the valet service would that charge be included in with the homeowners association fees, or would that be responsible to each individual unit owners?
No, it's part of the HOA.
Good.
That's the same way we're gonna do it in Hidden Rivers also. That's just part of your service, part of your fees you're paying.
I would just go to say that I agree with Commissioner Warren on or excuse me, Commissioner Russell, I apologize. Thank you, David. About the dumping issue, I can see that being, when I lived close to campus many moons ago, I saw people left and right just go dump stuff in the dumpsters there. So I don't know that I see, especially where you would be locating this dumpster. My concern was you'd be able to see that directly from the road. And anybody's going to go in there and want to dump anything and everything they're going to want to dump. Especially, Tara asked a good question. I'm sorry, Ms. Seister asked a good question about if it's going to be gated. And if it's not going to be gated, you're just giving them an open invitation to go dump in there anytime you'd like. I also had concerns about the setbacks. My thought process, though, on that is even if we removed 3, 4, or 5 of those units, what would that really do to the setbacks? I'm not sure that it would make much difference when it comes to the way that they've designed and laid out that piece of property. So I'm pretty much over that as far as, because I just don't think that they would be a way to design that in a different way that would make a difference. So for those reasons, I think the project is terrific, and I look forward to it.
Yeah, so just to answer that about the setbacks, I knew when I talked about the setbacks, it would have to be a completely different design.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just all there is to it, and I don't know that that's a terrible thing. You could keep the same look, you could keep a lot of the same stuff, but the way that those back 2 buildings are situated in there is going to have to change if we decided that the setback wasn't appropriate. It's just not appropriate, and that's pretty much where I'm at on it. Is that's just where that's why I say if you get rid of 4 units, it does impact the density and all that. And I just was bringing up the trash can as a it could have been the trash thing. It could have been the open space questions. I mean, I'm not a big fan of counting your stoop or whatever you call that as part of the formal open space. I don't know if that's typical or whatever, but that doesn't seem to me like that's something that benefits all of the neighbors or whatever. I mean, your porch isn't really that to me, but it's, whatever. It's however it's supposed to be counted. I assume staff has factored that in. So my thoughts were, yeah, if we reduce the density a little bit, maybe just go back to the drawing board, frankly. I mean, I thought we were going to have to do it to get the parking in there as well, but looks like you kind of squeeze that in or whatever. But, I knew that would have to happen. That just seems to open a lot of doors to a lot of the things we talk about, whether it be trash or open space or, how big the fire pit can really be inside of a 15-foot little gap right there that people are expected to be walking in and out of every day that come in and out to get to the parking lot. I mean, it's, that's going to be a barrel more than it is a big, nice fire pit likely, but it's okay. I mean, I'm not the one buying the house to say that's good or bad, but I just felt like getting that density down allowed for a lot of these other things, and it would be a totally different view. And I hate to say, I think I tried to touch on this before we got to this point fairly. That is what it is. But if I agree with everything everybody said. It's an improvement. There's no getting around it. It's definitely an improvement. It's a good-looking project. There's a lot of good things about it, man. I'm not arguing any of that at all, and I agree that people would throw trash over if you leave a dumpster out there. I mean, I've never done it, but Brian probably does.
Well, I have.
All the time.
Never say never.
I'd like to add something that I think
Done it yesterday, but
only when you really have to. If I could add something, because Tara, her last name is escaping me, but she called me about the refuse that's kind of floating around on the property. But she has that house that you said you think is new. She said, I was betting on downtown. All my friends said I was crazy. And she says, I think my bet's working out. Because she's right across the street. And she felt like this was a positive thing for her property value. Her home is the one. It's literally directly across the street. It looks brand new. So she paid a pretty penny for it. She told me what she paid for it. But what's happening there is that it'll do 2 things. I think the assumption is that everything's going to be torn down and everything's going to be new and it's going to be high density. I'm not sure if that's a great assumption. I think what we're going to see is it's now safe to invest in any home downtown. If you say, hey, we love the Craftsman style, we like the nature of this, now we can go across Main Street and put money there because we know new vitalization's coming in. So I think it's kind of a neat way to look at it, but that was from her mouth. She said, I was betting on downtown, and it looks like my bet's coming through. And I thought that was kind of a cool perception because she had a chance to say that's a very negative thing, and she saw it as a very positive thing. Although she did comment on her neighbors, and one of her neighbors walks a chicken by a leash, and she's got 2 neighbors that barbecue on the front porch, and she said it's a very multicultural space.
I know that is.
So she likes it there, but I think it's an interesting perception of someone who has a single-family detached home and her perception of this project.
If I could say, I forgot to mention when I called on Ms. Seister to speak, should have let the Planning Commission know that she provided these pictures for us, that she was speaking about the area around the house, and I forgot to say that when I introduced her originally. So again, thank you for providing those pictures for us to see tonight. Also, and I think maybe this could be addressed maybe by the staff and maybe directly to Mr. Brothers later, but we, I think, need to acknowledge or maybe talk to him, or in general, if you'd like to say anything tonight. He mentioned that State Street had become a makeshift drag strip, and I'm not sure, that is certainly not the only street in town that has happened, or in our area, or I-24, or lots of makeshift drag strips we've had come up over the last year while we've had so much less traffic on our roads, but did want to acknowledge, and hopefully we can say something to him or help out with that.
We can certainly relay that concern on to MPD's Traffic Enforcement Division.
Okay, thank you very much. I did believe that in the discussion that we had, we were talking about the exceptions that they're asking for, and 3 of those related to the setbacks. But it's my understanding basically that the staff feels that those do really fall within the CCO guidelines, even though they may not fall within the current zoning guidelines, so that they were fairly comfortable with those requests for the variations there on the setbacks. The dumpster, I do feel the same way. I don't feel like asking to have even a dumpster enclosure there. I think we, if 15 units is what we normally require a dumpster, I mean, this is 18, or depending on if Mr. LaLance, what he has to say next, maybe it's 16, I don't know, or I don't know, something, whatever. But I feel like it's worth giving it a shot on the private pickup with the individual cans for the units. And I do think we add back the island that I originally said to take out for an additional parking space, but you got some parking spaces around the corner. I think the step up is the other thing that we just haven't really, I know the staff really wants the step up, so I think that's the other thing we haven't addressed, and Mr. LaLance feels strongly on the on our density. We've also heard
And it's not just the
every other
precedent
one
on the
in the
density.
density.
It's the precedent on the setback. I mean, that's,
And so maybe we do need some more discussion from the staff then on is this in line with CCO guidelines? That's kind of what I was understanding, and that you're not as concerned about the request for the setback.
The rear
variances.
setback that Mr. LaLance is speaking of, that would be the bulk zoning setback. It is not affected by the CCO regulations. The CCO refers to the bulk zoning, which is 20 feet. So they are asking for a 10-foot difference.
And the front setback is so the CCO regulations allow a reduction from if it was not in the CCO. And that is averaging out the front setbacks of the houses on the same block face. So they're requesting for a lesser setback than what the CCO would permit. I think the front setback is something that we're comfortable with. I think we expect urban redevelopment to have reduced setbacks. This is a little bit greater than what the CCO makes provisions for, but I think we are comfortable with the front setback reduction.
And Ms. Kerr, do you mind speaking to the staff thoughts on the 18-inch step-up?
Staff believes that, just for the ability, the non-ability for somebody walking down the sidewalk to be able to look into the homes that low and that close to the sidewalk. Generally, you're talking a 30-foot setback when that's usually applicable. They're going to be 8 foot from the sidewalk.
But the comment I would have to that is the individual unit owner is going to be able to control whether somebody looks into their window or not. You know what I mean? They're going to have blinds on the window. If they want to keep their blinds open and do whatever, that's what, I don't know. That thought process, the unit owner or whoever's occupying the unit is going to be able to control whether somebody's looking into their window or not. That would be my comment.
It's just a matter of whether or not you're going, you expect someone to have their blinds shut all the time or not.
Yeah.
I'll say this, I go into a lot of houses on a daily basis, and most people keep their blinds shut anyway.
Yeah.
I want to make one comment on that. I'm not building these like this tall, just so everybody, I think that's getting that. I don't want the impression I'm building these around the ground. These are probably going to be 18 to 12 inches. We're not. And we're talking like this much. I don't know that that's going to dictate a window, if you can see in somebody's window or something. I don't understand that philosophy.
You're talking off of grade. We're talking 18 inches off of grade. You're talking off the sidewalk. So
Off the sidewalk, I will be over 18 inches tall. I'm talking off the grade, yes, sir. And I think that's how it's, and maybe I'm misunderstanding how it's measured. Is it measured off the grade or is it measured off the street sidewalk? Maybe I'm making a bigger deal of it than it is. Maybe Matthew can answer that.
I'm sorry, what was the?
You drifted off for a minute. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know.
Ask the question.
I think he's on Facebook.
I was looking at texts from my bosses.
Oh. Is the 18 inches off the sidewalk on the street, or are you looking 18 inches from the grade of the house? There's a difference there is why I'm asking.
I believe Amelia included the exact language in the required to have a minimum finished floor elevation of 18 inches above grade when the front setback is less than 30 feet. So above grade.
Yeah, so that's, I'm asking for a little leeway there, but no, we're talking 6 or 7 inches probably. Any slab you do is going to be 12 to 16 inches tall anyway. But then you have a little bit of a grade. It comes up and it skews that number. So.
All right. What other comments and questions from the Planning Commission?
One of the other things, Amelia, that you mentioned was the stamped concrete piece.
Yes, sir.
So from a visual perspective, I think that would make the project nicer, but we were saying we did want that or we didn't want that?
We would like to have that.
Okay.
We understand this area for the formal open space is going to be more for the 7 units in the rear.
Right.
Because the individuals that have a rooftop patio, that's going to be their main formal open space for their guests and things. We don't really think that they will be utilizing that as much as the individuals who have the smaller back porches and no rooftop patio.
Right.
Ms. Kerr, would that ask for all of the sidewalks or just at the fire pit?
Just the sidewalks that are around, well, the sidewalks that are in front of the 7 units in the rear. If you look on the open space page on your plan,
Yes.
I believe that, yep.
Well, I would just chime in that someone stated earlier, I would agree with a fair ask to do that at the fire pit itself, but I'm a fan of the smooth sidewalks for kids and bicycles to keep them on the sidewalk rather than in the parking lot.
Jennifer?
So, Ms. Garland, you're commenting, I'm sorry, we're having trouble hearing you, and we want to make sure we understand your comments. Are you in favor of the stamped concrete for the formal open space, or you're saying just around the fire pit?
Just at the fire pit.
Okay.
I think the sidewalks should remain smooth.
I'm good with that also.
We know you like that, Mr. Barnes.
All right, I'm going to throw a motion out there. So, and I'm sure I'm going to miss something, but I'm going to make a motion that we approve. With no dumpster, with everything else that the developer has asked for as part of his presentation, except that we would add the stamped concrete around the gazebo and fire pit area. And I think that's, go ahead.
That, one more landscape.
Yeah, I know that's what's been said, but, and I know they're indifferent, but I think I'd rather have the parking space. And so somebody can amend, we can work through that.
Sorry.
But right now, I think with the trees being in that area, in that open space, I would be of the opinion I'd rather have the parking space.
I agree.
So that hopefully we alleviate that one car from parking on the two sides, the main street and the side street. That's just an opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Vice Chairman Halliburton, may I also pose the question for the Planning Commission? As I mentioned, in their pattern book, they mentioned that there's going to be a privacy fence as a part of their buffer. And in their presentation, they asked for flexibility. I think the privacy fence serves as a part of the buffer because it helps to mitigate impact, whereas the wrought iron fence or the aluminum fence or whatever they're looking to do, would take away from that buffer. And I think it's up to the Planning Commission what you go with. But I think it's two different issues, or they serve two different purposes. The privacy fence helps to supplement the buffer, whereas the aluminum fence or the wrought iron fence is could be more decorative or more just to keep people from trespassing in the development. So I think that's a question that needs to be answered so we know how to move forward on that.
But the plan book currently says it will be a privacy fence, not it says it'll be
I believe a vinyl
picture,
privacy
the
fence, I
vinyl
believe.
privacy fence.
Yes, ma'am.
The other consideration might be that, when you have people pulling into that area at Front State Street, their lights are going to shine straight through to probably Mr. Brothers' yard there, every time somebody pulls in and out of that, just might be that's kind of why I was saying earlier that the buffer and all that, the setbacks, all that stuff seems to matter, and the fence would matter to me as well, but
I agree with that.
I'm,
So I will include the privacy fence as it's indicated in the plan booklet as part of my motion.
So we have a motion, and we'll be looking for a second, but the motion is the plan as presented without a dumpster. Well, that's the plan as permitted, because number 5 down there says he's getting an exception to allow the use of solid waste cart valet garbage service in lieu of the required dumpster. So that is what we've been presented then, so, right? So that's not an exception or change we need to.
Yes, ma'am, that would be just as submitted with regards to that.
As submitted is your motion on the parking space.
Correct.
So the.
The only
Is
thing would
there-
be different is the stamped concrete around the,
was there also some staff comments about the barriers in place between the parking and the seating for the fire pit or something like that? Did I hear you say that?
That was having the parking space be an island in front of kind of the area of the fire pit to put a little bit of a barrier there. But currently, as the program book shows, there is only stamped concrete in the fire pit area.
okay,
So
thank you.
It's going to be
Yeah,
as submitted.
Absolute-
If I'm correct.
yes.
If we hit all those
Right.
three. So Mr. Halliburton has a motion to approve as submitted in the plan book. Is that
Second.
correct? And a second by Mr. Wright. So we have a motion and a second. Staff, do we have that all clear? Does everybody understand? We good? Okay. Ms. Jaco?
Would-
Commissioner Garland,
Aye.
Commissioner Halliburton,
Aye.
Commissioner Russell,
Aye.
Commissioner Silas,
Aye.
Commissioner Wright,
Aye.
Commissioner LaLance.
I would go with 14 and a bigger setback, but no. I would even go with less open space to get the setback, but no.
Chair Jones.
Yes, aye. Okay, motion passes. Did we hear from Ms. Garland in there? Yes. Okay, thank you. All right. So, thank you all very much. Mr. Burns, Mr. Roundtree. Motion passes. 6 aye and 1 no. Next, we have plats and plans. First item is Caroline Farms, Section 2, amended final plat for 50 lots on 12.2 acres, zoned PRD, located along Caroline Farms Drive, Caroline Farms LLC developer. Mr. Blomley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is really, I know I often say that Mr. Ives doesn't like me to say a housekeeping measure, but it is somewhat. Back in August, the Planning Commission approved a final plat for Caroline Farms Section 2. The developer is ready to record the final plat. However, there is a public right-of-way, and I've circled it right there for Quarter Horse Drive. The city has been in discussions, or has been actively working with the developer to for the north-south connector from Thompson Lane to Cherry Lane that's shown on our major transportation plan. And the developer of Caroline Farms will be dedicating right-of-way and constructing this north-south road to the extent of his property. Caroline Farms Drive will serve as that north-south connector, and then we'll do a 90-degree turn, and then another 90-degree turn to Quarter Horse Drive, which will eventually connect back to Cherry Lane. The plat that was approved by the Planning Commission in August did not show the right-of-way of Quarter Horse Drive. So really, this is just a cleanup before he records the final plat to ask you to approve the Caroline Farms Section 2 final plat depicting the right-of-way of Quarter Horse Drive. It's my understanding that he will be submitting a performance surety for the construction of Quarter Horse Drive shown in this right-of-way. so that the city engineer can sign it and it can be recorded. Be happy to answer any questions. Staff would recommend approval of this amended final plat, which, as I mentioned, the primary difference being that it depicts the right-of-way of Quarter Horse Drive. It's in your order. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Blomley. Any questions from the Planning Commission?
If not, I'll move for approval, subject to all staff comments.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Jaco?
Commissioner Garland,
Aye.
Commissioner Halliburton,
Aye.
Commissioner Russell,
Aye.
Commissioner Salas,
Aye.
Commissioner Wright,
Aye.
Commissioner LaLance,
Yeah.
Chair Jones.
Aye. Motion passes. Barely.
I couldn't help it, I'm sorry.
Our next item under plats and plans is Prologis site plan for 357,925 square foot warehouse distribution building and 11,880 square foot vehicle maintenance building on 77.7 acres, zone light industrial located along Elam Farms Parkway, north of Joby Jackson Parkway. Prologis Development. Ms. Kerr.
Thank you. This is a site plan review for 357,925 square foot warehouse distribution building and 11,880 square foot vehicle maintenance building located along Elam Farms Parkway, just north of Joby Jackson Parkway. The property is zoned LI. The total site is 777.65 acres and is proposed to have access to Elam Farms Parkway, as well as have a new public roadway run along the southern property line to be constructed and dedicated with this plan. In June 2020, a plan for this site was approved for a 1,244,432 square foot speculative industrial warehouse. The primary differences with this plan and the previous plan is the reduction in the size of the facility from 1,244,493 to the 357,925 square foot. The addition of an 11,880 square foot vehicle maintenance building increases the number of the trailer parking spaces from 250 spaces to 580 spaces, an increase in the number of employees parking from 212 spaces to 805 spaces, an increase in the distance from the planned residential zone property lines on the west side of the site to the proposed pavement. It increased from 48 foot to 215 foot. And fencing changed from a black vinyl chain link fence along the north, south, and east elevation and a vinyl fence along the west property line adjoining the planned residential development zone to a decorative industrial picket style security fencing and the inclusion of a 3,500 foot of concrete masonry walls on the north, east, and west property borders. Let's see if I can find the architecture. The architecture of the building is made up primarily of tilt-up concrete with reveals and multiple colors. It is got on the south border, you're going to have a, on the south border of the property is where they're going to have their actual entrance, and that's going to be off the new road, which is called Distribution Drive. Again, on the western border of the property, you're going to have the PRD zone, which is going to be a considerable distance. I want to see if I can find the actual site plan so you can see that. So So here you have the distribution drive. Vehicles will travel inward this way and then through the parking area, the area where they will offload their trucks, and then they will leave back out this way. These these trailers will be then loaded on this side and on these two sides of the docks, and then they will exit back out that way to the south. The sound wall, as you can see on this drawing, it will go along the detention pond or retention pond. This area here will have the decorative fencing around the detention pond, and then the decorative fencing will come until it comes back to the to the sound wall again. The sound wall will be along the north property line, the south property, and the east property line, and then the south and the lower part of the southeast will be just regular security fencing. As you see right here, this is where the location of the vehicle maintenance building is. And staff recommends the Planning Commission approve the plan, subject to all staff comments, and all staff comments will be addressed with the design team upon Planning Commission approval.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Kerr.
We do have some members of the team available today to speak. Prologis is here. We also have the gentleman who did the acoustic sound study available, Mr. Tachi. And we also have the architect available by Zoom. And then we have members of the Prologis team available here in the audience to speak as well.
And Ms. Kerr, are they making a presentation, or are they just here for questions?
They're just here for questions.
Okay.
So Amelia, talk a little bit about I get the wall, the berm, or is there a berm, or is it just landscaping, and what the landscaping is going to be around this sound wall?
Okay, the way the site is laid out, of course, this area back here on the western property line, that is where the planned residential development is.
Is that development in place today?
It is in place today.
Okay, go ahead.
The berm that will be along the back side of this will entail 12-foot tall berm that's 20 foot wide with landscaping, a type E buffer along the top of that berm.
Okay.
And then the actual fencing will go on the building side along the edge of the retention pond.
Okay.
And then they increase the amount, according to the city of Murfreesboro noise ordinance, they were only required to put a sound wall along this property, and they beefed it up actually to allow for more coverage of the sound wall on the north elevation, the east elevation.
So what, the north and the east, what is that? Is that it's not an E? Is it
all around the property, yes, sir, it's going to be an E, and the
Okay.
fence is going to be on the interior side on the eastern elevations towards the building.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, what other questions do we have? And as she mentioned, we do have the architect, the sound consultant, both available via Zoom, and some other members of the team are here in the audience if y'all have questions. It's a big plan.
I only got one comment. I got an email from a resident out here about this particular project, and she did ask me whether or not there would be any kind of sound barrier, so this will be really helpful. I'll email that back to her. The other thing that she was concerned with, that there was people out there, heavy machinery rolling at 6 or 6:30 in the morning, which I believe is earlier than what we permit. I think that we're not supposed to have that kind of machinery working until 7 on weekdays and maybe 8 on weekends. You know, my only answer to her was she has to call the police which means the police have to come out there and take care of that. That's probably not something we want to be dealing with. If we're out there working at 6 o'clock, we don't need to be. If we can go ahead and knock that, check out and nip that in the bud, that would be, I think, am I right in that? Is that an appropriate thing to say?
And what I would do, I would invite Mr. Mike Carrico with Prologis to address that.
How are you, sir?
Hey,
Mike Carrico, I'm with Prologis, and I'm a development and project manager for the company. And it would be my intention to basically talk to the contractor immediately upon receipt of any comments such as yourself, and I'll verify the working hours and working.
I can't verify it either, I'm just got.
No, sir, I understand.
It's from an email,
problem.
okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right, thank you so much.
you're welcome. Any other questions?
So, Mr. Kerr, on the top side of the drawing, in one of the drawings, it shows a 8-foot fence. So is there going to be an 8-foot fence on the other side of the detention pond?
Well, what's going to happen is there's going to be a 20-foot tall sound barrier.
Yep.
Okay? And in order to secure the detention area from anybody, potentially going inside the detention area and potentially falling in, there will be a fence that will tie into the sound wall.
Okay.
And surround the detention area.
So what type of fence is that?
It will be a wrought iron picket fence that looks, commercial. It'll be 8 foot tall, but it'll be decorative.
And it's on the other side of the berm?
Yes, sir. It's the same type of fence we're using around the properties as well. It's a black aluminum picket fence. I think it's part of the package that was submitted.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions?
And is this, I can't remember when reading, is it speculative or?
No, sir. This is a build-to-suit for FedEx.
Okay.
It's a big project.
Yeah, this is
Yes, sir.
a great project.
Yeah, I'll just tell you from my past experiences, stuff that I've seen come through. I mean, I appreciate the fact that you've been, it seems to me, proactive on some of these things. I mean, the fact of the sound barriers, the berms, that's not necessarily a typical thing that we get first run, I don't think. So I appreciate that.
Sure. I mean, FedEx is very, very cognizant of their operations, and they want to make sure that they're being as conducive to providing the community with what they need.
Any other questions?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
If there are no other questions, I'll make a motion that we approve subject to all staff comments.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Jaco?
Commissioner Garland,
Aye.
Commissioner Halliburton,
Aye.
Commissioner Russell,
Aye.
Commissioner Salas,
Aye.
Commissioner Wright,
Aye.
Commissioner LaLance,
Aye.
Chair Jones.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Exciting stuff. All right, next we have staff reports and other business, and Mr. Blomley is at the podium. So we have some other business. Mr. Blomley.
What was that laugh for, Mr. Halliburton?
No, I just like the way she introduced me.
It's like it's a bad thing that I'm up here. I'm just kidding with you guys. One real quick item of other business. If we could put the screen up. This is the West Lawn Commercial Section 1 plat. Back when this plat was recorded, the realignment of Shores Road, which was envisioned with the West Lawn PUD master plan, the street naming issue had not been resolved with the county because the remnant section of Shores Road, where the blue line I just drew, was still going to be named Shores Road, and we didn't want to duplicate the Shores Road street name until the county had an opportunity to address that. Mr. Huddleston and our staff has been working diligently with the County Road Board, and we appreciate the County Road Board and Mr. Brooks's support in this. On Monday morning, they voted to rename that remnant segment, not remnant segment, but the existing segment of Shores Road in between the realigned Shores Road and Veterans Parkway to Birch Tree Drive, as it will line up with Birch Tree Drive on the opposite side of the Shores Road realignment. So it essentially becomes an extension of Birch Tree Drive, which is a residential street in the West Lawn subdivision. With that being said, now we need to formally take action to name the Shores Road realignment as Shores Road as expected. You'll notice on this plat that I have before you, it was actually recorded as unnamed public right-of-way. And so we would ask you to, as Planning Commission with the body that has the authority over street naming in the city of Murfreesboro, to vote to approve Shores Road as the street name for the realigned Shores Road. Seems kind of redundant, but I think it must be done.
Okay. So, any questions for Mr. Plumley, or we need a motion for the?
So what do you want to name?
I nominate Shores Road. And we would work on timing with the county, because when we officially name it Shores Road will depend on when the county officially renames the existing Shores Road to Birch Tree Drive. We'll hammer out all those details.
Make a motion we approve, subject to all staff comments.
Second.
The motion and a second. Ms. Jaco?
Commissioner Garland,
Aye.
Commissioner Halliburton,
Aye.
Commissioner Russell,
Aye.
Commissioner Salas,
Aye.
Commissioner Wright,
Aye.
Commissioner LaLance.
Aye.
Chair Jones.
Aye.
Thank you all.
All right, motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Plumley. He's sitting back down, so. Any other business this evening?
Nothing here.
Okay. All right, thank you. We stand adjourned.